You see what I mean? You can tell that this is a verse or a new section. So you kind of generally want to do this. You can see I have all these tempos saved. Basically, what I found is there's actually mathematical formulas to things like compression and reverb, but reverb's the one that really stuck out to me. Oh, this hurts. Basically, just enable this thing, hide flex or show flex. Now, this plugin is the biggest hack when it comes to these guitar sounds. What's good, guys? So in this video I'm going to try and make a Travis Scott type beat. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to get some chords just laid down on Logic Pro just using the key roll, and then I think what I'll do is I'll just find those chords on Google and then I'll kind of figure out how to play them on here. And I think it's just going to be a super simple like 1 or 2 chord progression, and I'm just going to figure out some kind of arpeggio or just progression of notes, and then yeah, see how that goes. And what I'm going to do is use the voice memo app on the iPhone. So if I just search it here, yeah, you'll see it's called voice memos. If that ever focuses, maybe not. Anyway, so voice memo app, I've already got some there. And I'm just going to use iPhone recording because it's crazy how good technology is, and as long as you know how to use EQ, compression, and just basic mixing, you can get a pretty good sound. So I'm just going to do that for the sake of convenience and see how it goes. So I'm just going to doodle until I find something. Okay, so I think I've got a little bit of a progression. Again, I'm not too stressed about it being perfect because I can just edit all that in Logic. But I'm going to use the A minor chord, so it sounds something like this. Arpeggiate that, or like it just has that kind of like dark tone to it. So after putting this down in the key roll, what the second chord is just me taking away my index finger, and that'll be an A sus2, not sus in that kind of way, but A sustained, I'm guessing, 2 chord. Obviously don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, so from this, you see that, like, I mean, that's all these beats are really, right? You just take one note and move it. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I've got a little bit of an arpeggio, so I'm going to record it now and just see how this goes. And yeah, right. This hurts. I need to get used to it. Right, so now we're in Logic. I'm going to grab that guitar recording and just drag it in. So I'm going to chop that there. Quick side note, so these are the chords that I had actually laid down on the piano. As you can see, the A minor and A sus2, as it says here. So yeah, typical dark chord progression, super simple, literally just moving this middle note. So yeah. One thing though, I might sometimes, especially with guitar, leave the tiniest gap so it's not exactly on the 1, because I just feel like it gives more punch when the 808 hits, because there's nothing, or at least the main chord progression, the melody isn't on that 1, like dot for dot. So it just gives that 808, I think, that extra little bit of room to really punch through. But not that it's off time enough that the actual song or the melody sounds out of time. So what I normally do is just pull up tap tempo, and that'll just help me get the tempo for what I recorded at. So dun, 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 dun. Yeah, so about 144. We'll go with that, and we'll see if it aligns a bit better. So that was pretty on time, to be honest. Maybe it helps being a drummer. So I'm going to do this. Basically just enable this thing, hide flex or show flex, and then from what I remember, because I just recently learned this actually, put it on rhythmic, and you can see here you can just click and drag that. So it slows down a bit there, like there. Honestly, blows my mind that technology is capable of doing this. Yeah, super cool. Click drag that. Ooh, a little bit there, probably. So I just noticed this. You can see, so you always want to make sure these things actually align on the bar or on the grid, because this is going to mess you up. You might not notice it at first, but by the time you're halfway through a song, it's going to be really off time. So always make sure that your loops are actually stretched and cut on time. So I'm just going to do this, and I do this by holding Option and just clicking and dragging that stretches it. So I'm just going to double check that's the same with this. Yeah, you see this little gap, so can't be having that. Cannot be having that. Right, so that seems to be on time. Let's try this now. Cool, right, so we've got it chopped up, it's all in time. Now what we're gonna do is start adding effects, and I, at this point, have a bit of a go-to set of plugins that just reliably sound good. So Fab Filter, it's just the Q3. So take out some of those lows, maybe even a little bit of the highs. So I'll come back to the EQ in a second. I'm actually going to stick a compressor on as well, just make it sound a bit more full. And then reverb. So just a side note, as you can see, I have all these tempos saved. Basically what I found is there's actually mathematical formulas to things like compression and reverb, but reverb's the one that really stuck out to me because it made a big difference. And essentially when you hit a note and you have reverb, you're going to have that tail on the end, and what you don't want is so much reverb that that tail carries over onto the next note hitting. It's going to make it sound muddy, and you're not going to hear the definition of that next note because that tail is carrying over, if that makes sense. So there's formulas to understand where that tail end should actually end, and basically, if I remember correctly, this is what I've been going off of, and it seems to have helped. Take 60,000 and divide it by the tempo of the track. So here we'll do 63 divided by 144 equals, right. And then all you have to do is just do divisions of 2. So divide by 2, and I have 208 there. If that's still a bit too much reverb, which it probably was for me at the time, I just did 104. And that's why you can see I've got that there. So, and then the mix, yeah, I just put it on whatever. So yeah, reverb just makes everything sound better. So now this plugin is the biggest hack when it comes to these guitar sounds and Travis Scott, Don Toliver type melodies, and I'm pretty sure this is a free plugin. It's called Magic Switch by Baby Audio, and you'll listen to this difference. See, it just, we all recognize that sound. So I never put it on full, but just that little bit. And I'll put it. Remember also that the order of your plugins makes a big difference. So just play around with that. So it's sounding okay. So one thing you can do as well, so say we ignore that second bit, and I'm just holding Option, clicking and dragging that first one, so this is just a duplicate, is if you go up or down 5 semitones, it always works. So let's see what this sounds like, because I might not even want that second bit from before. You know what? So I'm actually thinking I'm gonna save this one for now, and I might keep this on the chorus and then make this one the verse. So actually I think what I'm gonna do is bounce this out, and I'll just put this as guitar verse, and we can turn flex off, and then just unmute that, bring that one back, bounce that in place, and I'll just do guitar chorus there. Okay, so now we've got both. I'll mute that one for now and we'll just work with this one. I love the sound of it. So honestly, what I'll probably do now is add a bass, and you can see I've just got a bunch of these things already pre-saved because it's just very consistent. So this is just a bass off of Analog Labs. We were in A minor. Yeah, so I'm playing A there. Now what I do, because I'm not the best with music theory, is I will just pull up. I always use this, and it's super easy because you always want to make sure you're in key. Obviously you can't play, well, I'm not gonna get super technical in theory, but yeah. So basically all the white notes, just knowing that the root note is A. So I'm gonna move that. Right, so. So I'm gonna mess around with these for a bit and see what I find. So I'm gonna see what this one sounds like. Yeah, so another pro tip I found is just leaving pockets of space with the bass and not necessarily just having it go throughout the entire melody. So I'm just gonna record this and I'll make some adjustments. Try to, and I'm finding new methods for this all the time, but try to be organized when you're composing, because I find that when I'm making melodies, by the time I finish the actual loop, I might have like 20 tracks, and a lot of them are just throwaways and old drafts. So try to keep your stuff organized and just like kind of group together. That's what helps me at least. So, oh, also don't forget to save. So, right, so now I think we're gonna want some kind of counter melody. I'm gonna get onto textures and stuff at the end because that's just kind of the icing on the cake. So I think what I'll do is I'll go into Analog Lab, and I always just flick my reverb on straight away. Let's just copy this and make it faster. Okay, let's see what we can find. So I've been using this bank recently, Impulse, and I've really liked some of the sounds on it. So let's see what we find. Ooh, okay, I kind of like that. Kind of like that. Okay, we'll see what we're saying with that last note. Now, just a little pro tip, I normally turn, like any notes that are in the higher octaves, I normally turn down the velocity because we usually perceive them as being a lot louder just because the frequencies are more harsh. So you'll notice that if you're doing 808s, generally if I have an 808 glide or something that's like an octave or for some reason 2 octaves higher in that same track, I'll normally turn down the velocity or the volume of it, just so it's not so overbearing compared to those lower notes. The lower notes are always going to sound more muffled and subdued and just quieter, so it's really jarring and obvious if you have that high note be introduced at like full velocity as well. So yeah, let's see what it sounds like with halftime. Okay, I love that. I love both of them. So what I'm gonna do is that's gonna be for the verse. I'm gonna bounce that out with the halftime. I'll just call it like, I don't even know what it is, lead, texture, verse. That's with the halftime. Actually, I'll just do this halftime. Also, I never used to do this, but I always bounce out my MIDI now, because especially with all the plugins playing at the same time, it just saves you CPU, and it's just way easier to manipulate the audio files than the MIDI, unless you want to, if you think you're going to be changing MIDI notes around. But otherwise I would generally just bounce it out now. I never used to do it, but I really like the difference it's made in my workflow. Bleed texture, cool. So honestly, I think we're really getting there now. We've got some. Yeah. I like that. One thing, I'm gonna add a bit of delay. So I've already got this set on a bus, so. Just again making it sound more spacey. That's really what you're going for with these melodies. So I'm always mindful of clashing frequencies. If you've been producing for a while, you'll be aware of like just doing this in your mixes, not having a bunch of instruments sit in the same frequencies, because it's just going to make it sound muddy, and yeah, you really don't want that. You want space, especially because we haven't even got drums on this yet, let alone an artist or someone who's rapping on top of it. So you don't want to start filling out every single frequency to the point it just sounds too full and too muddy. So sometimes just pan things out the way as well. You imagine you have like everything in the center, dead like straight mono in the middle. Sometimes just moving an instrument a bit to the side, like a vocal or something more subtle, or something that sounds bigger and in the back, then it's not competing and fighting for that same space. So that's just a little tip that I found helps as well. So yeah, it's a little bit more out the way now. I'll also do this as well. I'll just pull up both the instruments and compare the EQs side by side. Yeah, so it's about 600. Yeah. So the last thing now, and this can be very time consuming if you let it, at least I get very carried away, but that's just adding some slight little like percussive effects. So I'm gonna go to Splice and I'm gonna find some just like loops, little drum samples that I can chop up and use. So with this one, there's already a few things I like. I don't actually really want the drums in this, but there was all these little effects just in between here. All those little echoey background sounds I like, and I want those. So what I'm gonna do is try and chop those out of the drum sample, get an EQ, and just take out a bunch of the highs, a bunch of the lows. So you can see how little of the sound I actually want, and it's just so that this isn't taking up a bunch of space, because again, we haven't even put drums on this yet. We're gonna need an 808, hi-hat, snare, all that. So I don't want this to clutter anything. I just want it to just be that kind of ear candy, and just like to give the track texture and not sound so sterile. So always want the intro sounding a bit more subdued, so that when the chorus or the hook hits, which is typically right at the beginning with tracks these days, just that there's more of a opening rather than the exact same loop with no difference in effect or impact or intensity. So I'll just duplicate this, bring it down, and then so this is just the guitar, and I'll take out a bunch of, you see what I mean? It's already more typical for an intro. I'll leave more of the low end in. I've already cut out a lot, but do that, and I'll probably get a bit of reverb. Yeah, you see? It's just So yeah guys, this is a full beat, super simple, Travis Scott, Don Toliver type, typical like psychedelic dark trap beat. Here's what the full thing sounds like.
Blue infinity.
See, the melody's not doing too much. There's plenty of space for an artist to be on top of this, so. Now this is just the whole drum loop that I took, put it in halftime and EQ'd a bunch of the highs and the lows out. You see what I mean? You can tell that this is a verse or a new section, so you kind of generally want to do this. Sometimes the melody will just play throughout the beat, but usually it's helpful for an artist if there's clear differences in what is the chorus and what is the verse. So yeah, that's full beat, guys. I appreciate you watching if you've gotten this far into the video. If you have, I would ask that maybe you consider subscribing, liking the video, doing all that stuff so it helps this channel grow, as this is something I really want to take seriously and provide content that might actually benefit you guys and just types of videos that you can learn from and maybe take ideas from, because I know I watch a bunch of videos like this and they've helped me a lot in my process. So yeah, hopefully I can do the same for you, and I really look forward to making more and just improving the quality and stuff over time, as well as becoming a better producer myself. Anyway, it's a lot of rambling. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.